And welcome back, and it is the, I just want to start off with a couple comments about Fukushima Daiichi before we get into the news with Tim Alexander and Matthew Deagle, my oldest son. And first, the Fukushima Daiichi, here are the bullet points of the issue. Number one, it's continuing to release long-acting isotopes that's poisoning the northern hemisphere and desertifying the North Pacific. I specifically contacted Kai Vetter, the head of the Nuclear Engineering Division of the University of California, and basically his response to my presentations was to stop doing testing and to lie about the fact they're going to do testing of kelp, etc. The fact is that we have sea lion pups dying here off the coast of California as far south of San Diego. We have, within just a couple months after Fukushima, these superfish, tuna going across the Pacific, showing 93% of them plus were laced with all kinds of isotopes. The long-acting isotopes basically have half-life of several hundred years, so they don't just go away like radioiodine in 4 half-lives or a month, if it stopped, but it's not stopping. As Einstein says, boiling water with fission is an insane thing, and that's the guy who invented the idea of, along with, the other early nuclear scientists of the early 20th century. The fact is that it's craziness, and most of our reactors worldwide are either an old design that's dangerous and releases isotopes of tritium, or are post-geriatric and are not properly maintained.
The key thing about Fukushima, well, there's more than one key thing. One is the Q waves clearly indicate that it was not a natural event that caused the tsunami, that caused the nightmare.
Exactly.
That
it was
let me
finish,
a series of undersea nuclear
let me finish
nuclear
my rant.
bombs that went off.
Yeah.
Still there?
Well, that was Professor McCanney, but we know that it happened right after there was a conflict with the with Israel regarding nuclear materials.
Right, exactly. So the usual suspects were involved. But the continuing thing is
let me finish,
one more indication of a population reduction program that the globalists are running.
Let me finish my rant first. And
okay, go ahead.
The reason why I'm going to do this is, this is important because I'm going to just summarize it. Number one, I've told them you need to have muon detectors to detect exactly where the lava lamp of nuclear materials is and ground-penetrating radar. You need to put a boronated hyperosmolar solution down there to stop neutron flux, and you need to have not just an ice wall, but a blocking of the water coming down to the aquifer into Fukushima Daiichi, because the whole place is already being flooded by water from the mountains above it. They needed to put the nuclear, what's called the backup generators above, at a higher altitude, so that if there was another tsunami, it wouldn't get flooded and they'd lose control on containment. Because remember, they're still trying to cool these areas. They're still boiling and bubbling away.
They haven't
removed the nuclear materials from the site. Most of these are creating what's called steam tubes that are out into the ocean floor off of Fukushima, and they haven't been in what's called to build a seawall and a containment area where they can convert the nuclear radioactive water into a solid waste and remove it. So everything is going on. I've told them they should have been putting Kevlar spider silk tents over each of the nuclear reactors and had an air filtration system. They have had swamp, for example, we call these dirty materials that are actually in bags all over the site, already swamped and burst. So they're not controlling anything.
Dr. Bill, they've only had 5 years. They have to have meetings.
Let me finish. So the issue is that Fukushima Daiichi is a total disaster. Well, you have to know that TEPCO, though, is just an umbrella company. The service companies that are contracted are all American. They're the same people that actually set up with the reactor site called the waste processing plant, the WIP plant, waste processing plant in New Mexico, that had all these kitty litter things that exploded because they put kitty litter in there to act as a nuclear isotope adsorbent, which caused basically hydrogen and caused an explosion, so they blew the waste all over the place in this underground facility. So, by the way, get into the hydrofracking of local...
I have a couple of comments, though. I mean...
let me finish first, Matt.
Think about the logistics
let me finish my rant here first, Matt.
Doesn't it seem much more likely that it was a direct...
let me finish my rant here first. So, what's happening is that we have a situation where Fukushima Daiichi is poisoning us. Between Rosatom of Russia and America, which has sold like another $188 billion worth of reactors to India, proliferation of nuclear materials and nuclear weapons, which, by the way, most of these reactors generate high-level isotopes that can be used to create nuclear bombs, or at least dirty bombs, is increasing the likelihood of a nuclear war, increasing the likelihood of a major event just from a tsunami, an earthquake, a volcano.
Well, I don't think nuclear war is very likely myself. I think nukes are outdated.
No, but the more chance you have of nuclear materials, for example. So let me finish here. So the
nuclear
real issue
terrorism.
is none of the positions that I've taken. I'm writing an article that'll be available by this weekend on Fukushima Daiichi that I've taken have even been properly attacked by scientists and people like Michio Kaku and the other 40,000 scientists who belong to his so-called group of scientists. The problem is they don't want to venture to try to attack my positions on each of these things and specific technological things to fix it, like when I contacted the senators for both California and Oregon to actually do testing of radioisotopes in the atmosphere at different altitudes and know the flight paths of the aircraft so they can actually create what's called plume maps. And then if there's air sampling down in the aircraft, if it suddenly surges, they could then go and do a proton, what's called a plasma neutron spectroscopy and determine the isotope profile to determine exactly which isotopes are showing. And of course, let me finish. And when it gets over a specific town or city, if it rains out, it's going to cause a catastrophe. So what I'm saying is nobody in the government, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the NRC are properly responding. And while they're killing the biosphere, they're destroying the biology of the plants. So you have to understand the globalists want to reduce population by whatever means, whether it's the H5OH13 gene or, let me finish, and whether it's the fact that they aren't fixing the biosphere, whether the fact that they are proliferating nuclear materials use when we actually could have nuclear fusion or other technology like the wing generator from Professor McCanney and other technologies to finish. Yeah, let me finish. So the real issue is inaction on the part of not only the scientists who know better and who need to speak, or the public who thinks that they don't need to take action by filing legal lawsuits against their own country or the nuclear industry. That's the problem.
Building that plant right on the coast in a tsunami zone was stupid to begin with. And
but they actually cut down the berm in that area, because if they'd actually built it above the berm, which is naturally there, it apparently, according to scientists and experts, it wouldn't cause a problem. So that's my rant. So,
but I want to talk about a couple of theories that he talked about. Like, first of all, I see it as highly implausible that the Israelis could actually get nuclear weapons under the ocean in the middle of the Pacific. I do think it is possible, on the other hand, though.
Very easy.
Maybe you're misinterpreting these Q waves as representing nuclear weapons when much, much more likely it was a directed energy weapon, if anything. If it was triggered as a kind of attack.
Well, we know from Professor McCanney, who's an astrophysicist, that it was not a normal earthquake. Let's put it that way. It was basically a subduction zone type fault line attack that was created by either energy weapons or nukes.
We know Israel
or even conventional. It doesn't have to be nukes, by the way. You can create a tsunami with just conventional weapons settle on the fault line.
Nukes make it easier, and by the way, it's actually quite easy to do. There are shipping lines all over. Israel has many, but there are many. I mean, these things are flagged in Panama and Liberia and so forth. And it's very easy to drop a couple 100-pound micro nuke over the side and then go another mile and drop another one and then another one and another one. You're out in the middle of the Pacific. And it's quite easy to do that. It really is.
Yeah, we actually had one of our experts on about, this is before Fukushima happened, that a few years earlier there was a big conflict between the international bankers and Japan, and Japan was warned that if they didn't, they were going to have an attack on one of the reactors in a specific island, one of the middle islands, not the North Island. And within a matter of a week, they had a reactor that went critical because actually the fault line exploded with destroying the containment of the nuclear reactor, and the timing was like too coincidental. So
the other thing is, how on earth do you know it's the Israelis?
We have our sources, Matt, that indicate that Israel was in
the group of seven of the United States.
Here's the story. The story was Israel was somehow collaborating. Israel was somehow collaborating with the transfer of nuclear materials to a place that Israel didn't want. Because remember, the assassination of John F. Kennedy was tied to his opposition to Israel getting the bomb. That's one of the key things. That's one of the key things that triggered off the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Welcome back, and so what I'd like people to do is you don't have to necessarily accept my opinion or Matt's or whatever, but research it yourself, ask better questions, and then come up with an analysis that makes sense to you. For example, who's the real Ted Cruz? You have an article here, with a link showing how he secured a big sweetheart loan from Goldman and Citibank.
Goldman Sachs, his wife is an employee on leave from Goldman Sachs.
Right, she's also a CFR member, which he's called him the Pit of Vipers. The fact is, although he's a native-born Canadian, he really doesn't qualify to be a natural-born American. And in fact, legal opinion was given to Donald Trump about this. Cruz is a snake in the grass, and he's a Canadian snake in the grass. People need to understand that. He has dual citizenship first. He literally denied his Canadian citizenship. So if he was president, who would he support? I mean, people need to understand the policies of people like Justin Trudeau are definitely not American policies. And the current American policies are, to be honest with you, crazy. On the one hand, we're trigger happy, and we have what I call the Department of Offense. We really don't have a Department of Defense because we're not defending against electromagnetic pulse, food shortages if we ever had a major attack on America, or protecting our borders. So we have a Department of Offense, but not a Department of Defense. It doesn't exist.
Well, I don't see any reason to conclude that Israel is behind this. I mean,
it's not just Israel. It's not just.
It's just an illogical conclusion. Just because it's not just
Israel. Israel's a punching bag for it. Israel's a punching bag, and the way I see it,
Marxist Jews are even friendly to the idea of a Zionist state. I don't think they are. I think they're all. In
fact, most Jews in New Jersey and New York City.
I didn't say the Jews were responsible. I said Israel wasn't.
Well, it's the other way around.
No. Let me clarify here,
because
guys.
We're talking about secular Jews that believe in Marxism.
Just a second. Let me clarify. If you can go to yeshivas in New Jersey and New York, and you'll find many of them do not even support the idea of the existence of an Israeli state.
There are a lot of Orthodox Jews that are against it, but on the other hand, there are a lot of Orthodox Jews who are for it.
Right, but here's the point.
Globalism. Israel is just another rogue country, just like Armenia and Iran. It's run by a fanatical religion.
No, you're wrong. You're completely wrong.
It's a huge mistake to think that Israel is behind stuff just because Jews.
Well, they're behind things. They're the trigger finger for the CIA.
Your comment shows a lack of understanding of geopolitics. Israel is not just another country.
Okay, now, Tim, here's the way I look at it.
Neither is Iran or Armenia, right?
Let me intercede, guys.
Neither's the Vatican City. What about the Vatican? They killed one of their own popes, right?
Yeah, let me see. You're right.
Heck, half the popes in history were poisoned. That's nothing new.
Okay, now let me clarify something.
Isn't that a bit more concerning? Given
Israel is a trigger finger for the CIA. When the Israeli Mossad and Saudi agents were involved, that's why they had the dancing Jews around 9/11. They were
obviously the Israelis knew about 9/11, but that doesn't mean that they were.
Well, they didn't just know about it. They were actually on contract with the nuclear division of Mossad, but they're just a trigger finger. The CIA was the big daddy behind it.
Israel, the USA, and Saudis all cooperated on 9/11.
Exactly. Now, here's the point. Israel is not, to quote, the big bad guy alone.
What does that?
They're just a punching. Let me finish. The punching bag. Let me finish because if people can't hear, if there's two people talking. The real issue is, we can't just say it's Israel doing it all. Israel basically, in a sense, in its current behavior, is committing suicide.
Well, the other thing I wanted to address is that this population control thing is nonsense. The only Europeans have a stable population. Everybody else is extremely overpopulated.
Well, let's put it this way. The release of the OX513A gene very clearly is an attack when they knew it would cause a problem with weaponizing. Well,
obviously, that's not a rational solution to the problem, but there is a problem. I mean, like China is overpopulated. Bangladesh is super.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the fact that they don't fix Fukushima DIIACHI. They don't fix Fukushima DIIACHI. They release things that actually cause pathogen weaponization. Yeah, don't try to talk at the same time, please. Okay. The issue is that what we need to realize, it's not just a person in a specific. For example, Netanyahu is a CFR member. So is the wife of.
Yeah, but I think that's less significant, though, than Netanyahu being. Netanyahu himself, Likud, is very closely tied to extremist Orthodox rabbis and also the Jewish Messiah, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, right? So he has to do what the rabbis say because they killed Rabin, right? The rabbis had Rabin assassinated by one of their
exactly. We know that. Yeah.
There's really no difference. There's no difference really between Israeli fanatics and Islamic fanatics in Iran.
Exactly.
In fact, there's two different branches of the same group of people.
Exactly, I agree with you. Now, the point is,
but as far as Japan, also, it's not about population reduction. Okay, Japan. The problem they have with Japan is that Japan doesn't necessarily want to.
Well, hold it. Stop for a second. Why do you think it's not a population reduction problem? You say there's not a population problem, but you're coming from a perspective of a normal, rational human being.
Yeah, there is a population control problem.
But look,
in 5 years, the nuclear...
These types of people have always wanted as many slaves as possible. It goes totally counter to their general strategy. Look at the Catholic Church.
Have you listened to Kissinger talk about the unnecessary eaters?
Right, well, just look at Agenda 2030 right now.
Some cynical scientist... Right.
No, Matt. Let me insert this.
Not the Israelis or the Muslims.
Just stop for a second, Matt. Just stop for a second. What about Agenda 2030? You don't have to believe my words or Tim's words or your words. Read Agenda 2030, which both the Pope endorsed and the POTUS, Obama, endorsed.
I was talking earlier about Donald Trump, right? He's a response to the problem of the USA being internationalized and mass immigration and therefore the destabilization of any kind of solid culture and unity among Americans.
I agree. I agree with that.
Heavily exacerbated by overpopulation. Other countries like China and India being overpopulated means they have to send their educated people somewhere else to get a job, i.e. here. And that leads to the gradual erosion of our culture, especially when it comes to extremist Muslims like Anwar al-Awlaki's parents.
We're allowing it. Why are we allowing it?
Well, because obviously some of the people in our, like Ted Kennedy, for instance, have a delusional belief in some kind of borderless society.
Well, it's also part of the multiculturalism, which is one of the weapons and tools of these Khazarian maniacs who don't necessarily have to live in Israel. For example, I think you have a picture on your site, Tim, that shows one of the leaders, and she lives up, I think, in Norway. Her name is Barbara Lerner Specter, and she's public statements.
She's just look. Here's the thing with Jews, right? People think Jews are part of some big conspiracy just because a lot of them are crazy, basically. Like
they're not the only ones, though.
She's insane, right? She's an insane, super liberal Marxist. But the thing is, you get Jews of every kind of extremism.
Yeah, but they're not the only ones involved here. We're talking about the Vatican. There's an entire division of the Vatican that actually converted to Islam.
Jews have been an isolated society for
but it's not them alone, though. I see the Jews in many cases as being put out as a punching bag when we have the Vatican pushing multiculturalism. They even
the
have
Vatican is just as scary, if not scarier, than the Jews. I'm telling you. Look at Pope Francis.
Exactly.
I mean, look at the people dropping dead around the Pope, or even the Pope himself. I mean,
even the secretary.
Step back and look at history and follow the money and the power, and you will understand it's not quote-unquote the Jews, it's not quote-unquote the Vatican. It is a small group of people who are global bankers who use what they call money magic to basically counterfeit currency legally and have been at this game for about 350 years in earnest. They now control most of the political classes in the West and in many other countries. Well, and they are the ones that think there should be a dramatic population reduction. They're the ones behind all the wars.
They don't think that, though. They don't think that. Give me any
doubt. They actually published it. So, just to summarize, and again, nobody interrupt for just a minute here. The primary thing that's driving this is there are a number of forces, and these are tied to what Matthew talked about in hour 2, which are geopolitical, consciousness, etc., on a global scale. Think of the media, which is what we have right here with our radio show and Matthew's radio show, and what you're doing when you come on, Tim, is we're trying to explode ideas to ask better questions. And the people, the globalism serves the banks. And the banks basically control the level of consciousness, which is why they own the media. By and large, that's why all the people that are against Trump, you can list all the media there. What's going on is in the past, the Catholic Church wanted lots of big families and barefoot and starving. But in fact, if you actually look at the actuaries that talk about the effect of carbon credits, and the Pope has talked about this, about carbon credits for the control of global warming, which is going to kill much of the third world off because it's going to deny them the energy to grow food and to control their industry and advance their culture.
What about alternative energy sources? Why aren't they talking about
let me finish. So the key issue here, let me finish. So the real point here is that they've come out, and this is not even open to opinion, it's just they published it. I mean, World Watch Institute, the Agenda 2030, these super cities that they talked about, which have actually met with Obama many, many times, they actually plan on having the population of Earth in the next, say, 20 years in a giant number of super cities with a vastly reduced world population. That's what the globalist attention is. They are degrading human biology with vaccines and genetically modified food and not fixing Fukushima And Islam, you're right, is degrading the population genetically. And now they're massively invading these cultures like in Europe because it's to the advantage of the globalists to homogenize Europe so that the European culture in a few years won't even exist. It'll be an Islamic state. And America, they want to do the same thing too. They want to break down America so it doesn't maintain any cultural, in other words, you don't have any borders, you don't have a country. And what I see Trump as is a reaction against this. The people are angry, both in the Democratic side, when they want to hear somebody like Bernie Sanders, and the Republican side, and people's anger is boiling. And if they don't get either Bernie Sanders or Trump in there as president, the population's going to pop. It's going to get ugly. And people are, even if people disagree on some of the agendas and who's doing what to whom, they know that everybody in the so-called globalists, elite, bankers, whatever, no matter what their label, whether they're Catholic or Jewish or just whatever their background, they're basically stealing from the masses, planning on poisoning us, reducing our genetics, not letting the population get life extension or anti-aging or healthcare technologies that will lengthen their life and make them live longer. So increasing
Obama would have to have a Manhattan Project or something for a life extension, and instead they're focusing on...
No, he wouldn't. No, I talked to our president of our academy,
There's so many things that are suppressed technologies. You mentioned, energy. Look, I've had demonstrated to me in London basically a free energy system.
Yeah, with Dr. Nakamat's,
based on Tesla. And Dr. Nakamat's, a car that ran off water, or the engine that runs off water. He got bought out for an insane amount of money.
Yeah, no, by the way, Nakamatsu has more patents
all the time because it keeps the flow of enormous amounts of money in the hands of the cartel that controls the central banks, controls the energy companies, the pharmaceutical companies. Follow the money, follow the power, and you understand
but those people are just carrying out blindly the plans of people.
No, let me give you insert a comment by Dr. Ron Klatz. Dr. Ron Klatz is a good friend of mine, head of the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine 25 years ago. We have 800 and some thousand health professionals and around 100,000 doctors, and I blog for them. We are 5 to 10 years away from zero senescence, which means people won't need to get older anymore. The fact is that society is not ready for that. They met 2.5 years ago in the Burj Dubai Hotel with Dr. Klatz and some other experts because the globalists and billionaires, they want the technology and they want us to die early and go away. That's the fact.
Like I said, some delusional
No. These are the billionaires that run the world, okay? So you have to understand.
Oh, yeah, really. Can you find a statement by George Soros saying that? The guy just...
No, not just George Soros. All these billionaires that met with him at the Burj Dubai, that's what they wanted. We're talking about billionaires from all over the place. So
George Soros is the operative of the Rothschild Empire.
Right, and you got to understand that these people, for example, it's said that I think one of the Rothschilds just had 6 heart transplants.
Were never in control of anything, though. The Rothschilds, all these guys have just been tools of an occult organization that doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh yeah, Matt,
that's
you don't know history, okay?
No, I know the Rothschilds were just an instrument of accumulating wealth for a secret society based in Egypt that has been gone since 1978 because they all died.
No.
Okay, now the fact that 500
you're not dealing in reality. You're
the fact that half a quadrillion dollars, which is half the wealth of the planet, is controlled by the global banker families, which are like a dozen families. And ultimately, by the way, all these bankers...
they're trying to seize power, but they're trying to seize power through material means. Like I said on my show, I discuss the collective subconscious forces that really govern everything.
I know that's true. The selective subconscious
power. They cannot even begin to ride the wild bull that they're getting astride of.
I agree, which is why the financial systems... Well, that's why
they don't even have the beginning of the consciousness to control what the Giza intelligences used to control out of Egypt. They don't even have they can never do it. They're just fumbling to seize power through all sorts of paranoid machinations that ultimately will fail and result in World War III and then kill off most of the population.
Ultimately, we're having
okay. You're right about that.
Not as a plan, but as an accidental, stupid
No, it is a plan.
Power-hungry fools. No, it's not a plan. It's just stupid.
It's not stupid. I would go beyond stupid to evil. I use the word evil because
if it's a plan, it's a very bad plan. A plan to actually have your own country destroyed. I don't see the logic in that.
What does that
You're thinking as a human being.
Oh, so what you're saying is well, look, the thing is that they're human beings. They're just under the influence of stupid collective forces.
Well, not necessarily stupid, but evil.
Well, I would say the word evil is something which is lived backwards, which a lot of people don't want to apply. What I see happening is negative intelligences, is the best way to describe it, I call transdimensional entities, that have invaded the collective subconsciousness of the population and are like a metastatic evil that's destroying the culture.
Well, like I said before, there's really no such thing as Satan. God didn't create Satan, right? Those demons, or whatever you want to call them, are really just creations of our own subconscious mind. And they only are able to do things, or appear to be independent beings, which they're not, right? They're just parasitic thoughts on our own minds.
Well, I disagree. So God is real, and so is Satan.
I think that goes beyond just parasitic thought. I think that goes. You're actually
having the universe as a whole. There can't be an evil counterpart to God. It just doesn't make any sense. But there can be in the human collective subconscious, and there is. There is an evil. I mean, this has been a problem for theologians for 2,000 years now. Is the problem of evil? How can a good God create evil? Well, the answer is that humans created evil. You see,
yeah, but it's not just humans.
Evil was created simply by a intelligent entity. In this case, the angelic classes. Some of them rebelling against God, rebelling against what was holy and good, and they gave birth to evil. But God, in the sense, God is the author of good and evil only in the sense that he gives free will, and some intelligent beings who have higher cognitive consciousness choose to use that free will and go down evil paths, a path that is in opposition to the holiness and goodness of God. We can do that. We do that when we sin. When we do something evil, we do that, but we have free will.
Yeah,
It doesn't particularly have higher cognitive thought, and he has a certain amount of free will, but the dog isn't going to be evil. He may be really a rotten dog if he's been abused, but he's not an evil entity. But higher cognitive power does lead to the ability to become evil or good. We have the right to make that choice.
Yeah, I think we're not just dealing with a consciousness issue. We're dealing with organized entities that actually are indwelling individuals like Hillary Clinton and
they consist of a collective. They consist of a collective of people. They wouldn't exist without
it's all a matter of semantics. I think that we're actually dealing with organized entities.
If you killed every human, they would all be gone. You couldn't have a demon without a human.
If you want fresh, healthy drinking water anytime, anywhere, when traveling...
So, let's summarize in this last segment. Fukushima Daiichi is a good example. The spread of, and of course, people have known this for a while, even people like the Planned Parenthood, or Planned Parenthood. And I like the comment that Donald Trump made that, they do some good things. Yeah, they do, cervical, so on, but they do abortion. And even people that support abortion, they have to understand, we don't need abortion. We can have a valve put in so you can never get a pelvic infection or whatever. And I believe in family planning, despite the foolishness of the Vatican and so on. But I think what we need to realize is that we have the spread of toxic cultures like Islam. We have the spread of multiculturalism, which is dangerous. We have the spread of the getting rid of all your borders, Europe and America. And their trade zones, again, remember the CFR laid these out back in 1973 in their journal Foreign Affairs. The globalists want to homogenize culture so they have total control of us, and they want to reduce the population now. Yes, in the past they wanted more, but now they want a 90% reduction of the population. It's in the Georgia Guidestones and the World Watch Institute.
Well, then they're doing a pretty bad job, because what do you think this mass immigration into Europe is going to do but increase the population, of course?
No, it's designed to it's designed for two purposes.
Well, it's a bad design.
It's designed to destroy European culture, the Christian religion, morality, etc. But it's also designed to inflame the people in the West to bring about this clash of civilizations, this Third World War that Albert Pike, a Satanist, wrote about in a very famous letter that was on public display in the British Library in London for many years, and that is well before the Great War, the First World War. He described 3 global wars that were necessary to bring about the New World Order. He described the First and Second World Wars excellently, and his description of the Third World War is a clash between Muslims and Christians, the clash of civilizations.
Right, and I agree. And I think here's the point.
Certainly, I told you Albert Pike was part of the occult organization based in Egypt. That's why the Great Pyramid is on all the Masonic symbols and everything. But that organization, all the leaders of that organization are dead. Nobody's in control anymore. So if there's a war, it's not going to be a controlled conflict between Muslims and Christians.
The families that were controlling things in the British Empire are still controlling things today, and that's the global banking cartel.
What I see happening in Europe, and again, this is in the Bible, is the rise of fortress Europe. In other words, the national borders can go one or two ways. There's only 3 of the nations inside the European Union or affiliates that actually want to stay inside Europe now. Most of them want to leave. They're not going to be able to. The economy is now tied to the euro. What that means is countries like Greece, who now have gotten rid of the drachma, and all these countries that are suffering, they're going to unify and create an external wall and become a unified nation of almost 400 million, which is even bigger than the United States, with very advanced technology, and they're smack up against Turkey and the Middle East, and a unified Europe marshaled under a dictatorial Hitlerian type of culture, which is very likely to rise out of this massive invasion of people from North Africa and the Middle East, causing a counterculture reaction. I think you're going to see the
Western culture has its disease, and Islamism has
its disease. What I see happening is America becoming, whether it's Trump or some future president, but you're going to see America rise up as a clenched fist, and so is Europe. You're going to see these young lion nations, which it says in the Bible of Europe and America, rise up. And again, just like Albert Pike said, I see a great conflict coming between the Third Crusade coming sometime in the future, when Europe goes from this disorganized mess of states that want to leave but they can't, to a unified, what I call Fortress Europe. I see that coming. What do you think, Tim? Because I don't see Britain or Europe leaving the European Union. I see them now, especially with this invasion, this conjoined invasion.
Well, there are a lot of forces in Britain that want to leave, but the power
they can't.
That be the Rothschilds basically chose the structure of the European Union. If you've studied the European Union bylaws and its organization, as I have, it's designed to hide the actual levers of power. You have a European Parliament that basically is powerless. The laws are not laws as we know them. They're regulations that are passed by unnamed bureaucrats, and it was designed that way on purpose. It was designed to further the power of certain elite groups. There are things which benefit the masses of European people, but it wasn't for them that it was designed that way.
Exactly. In other words, what you're saying is 86% of the laws are. It's a dictatorship of the bankers and the administrative law. 86% of the law, and they've had in Israel.
And by the Rothschilds, like the penultimate fools of multiculturalism. I mean, they supported that.
Right, exactly. I've had an Irish politician on a few years ago on the program, and we talked about the fact that 86% of the laws in Europe are not passed by the local areas of Scotland, Ireland, or Britain, or Europe. They're passed by these bureaucrats in Brussels at the Strasbourg Parliament House for the European Union.
It's not the Parliament itself. It's the rule-making organization within the EU. Actually, the Parliament itself passes very few what we
I'm talking about regulators. The administrative regulators is what I'm referring to.
Exactly, and it was that way from the get-go. It was designed that way.
Right. Which is why the people in Europe are frustrated, because they have laws that directly harm their culture, harm their business, and collectively force them more and more under the boot of an ever-expanding Fortress Europe. And this situation,
who are they going to complain to? Their member of the European Parliament? Well, he or she is basically powerless.
Right, because the regulators...
It was designed that way on purpose.
Yeah, because the commissioners are all just appointed anyway.
Exactly, they're all appointed, exactly. Dictators. Well, you see, what was happening now with the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Partnership, which, by the way, both Bernie Sanders and Trump want to get rid of, is something Obama's pushing, is this, quote, one of his signatory last things he does, which will make government vestigial, which means the Congress, the Senate, and even the President will be superseded by treaties that mean these transnational corporations and globalists will be in control of our international trade. So it doesn't matter whether you have a border or not. And people don't understand this, that one of the first things that both Trump and Bernie, no matter who gets in as president, they want to get rid of these treaties.
Yeah, I don't trust Bernie to do that at all, but I think Trump would.
Yeah, I think so. I think Bernie is a delusional that thinks somehow he wants to make... But you see, Trump's policies in terms of health care are rational or doable. Bernie's is pie in the sky. He's like the straw man from the Wizard of Oz, thinking, if he only had a brain, he has a heart.
No, I think they both are not going to be able to do anything because, the government is set up on parties.
No, it's real simple. It doesn't matter. For example, if you look at the 7-point plan that Trump has for health care, make insurance portable, make them go for bids for drugs.
Trump represents, as I said, it represents the energy of loyalty and solidity. The counter argument to the lunar, the excess of immigration and change and multiculturalism and so forth.
Right, but
it's a natural consequence of what liberals like Ted Kennedy have been pushing for the past 50 years. However, he's unlikely to succeed because the government is controlled by the parties. Congress.
The parties are controlled by the globalists, or you can call them Illuminati, you can call them Khazarian mafia. They follow the money again. They make sure that people that get in positions of power follow their agenda. And if you don't get returned to office.
Well, interestingly, Newt Gingrich recently said that Trump wasn't part of the secret society. That was his actual quote.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not joking. He actually said those exact words.
So who do you think is likely to be the running mate if Trump gets it after the March 15th, Super Tuesday? I have a feeling they're going to start turning their guns toward Hillary Clinton because Bernie is being suicided geopolitically by the we call the superdelegates within the Democratic Party, even though he's winning the popular vote and he's got a lot of young people who want to support him. I think it's really disgusting what the Democrats are doing to themselves because they want to support their brand of, centrally controlled elite government. And the Republican Party are committing suicide, harakiri, to actually make certain that Hillary gets in because they quote, like Mitch McConnell says from the Senate, that we can work with Hillary. It's like, are you kidding? You can't work with Trump, but you can work with Hillary. This is craziness.
No, it's anti-Americanism. It's super elitism. It's for the super elite that are pulling the strings behind the curtain, and their interests are not our interests. Their interests are not God's interests.
Right.
They are following a demonic agenda. They're going to go to hell, and the sooner the better.
Well, I think that this year is a fulcrum year. This is the most important election since the founding of America. And if America goes down the toilet and they dump Trump, God help us as to what's going to happen. Because if Hillary becomes president, you're going to see revolution inside America.
You're right with God, folks.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. We don't have all the answers, but we have some darn good questions and some interesting analysis. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Tim. Again, Fukushima Daiichi, I'll have the 5th anniversary article out by this weekend, and I'll be posting up the links to it. We'll be back tomorrow with Firing Line and much more.
Hunters, anglers, campers.